Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Semi-Professional Academic Podcast. As always, I am your host with the most unused waffle irons in my cupboard because one's never enough and two is just too many, Jacob Watts. And joining me today is the hilarious, insightful, and also kind and not holding it against me because I forgot to hit record the first 13 minutes of this podcast, Jackson Van Uden from History with Jackson.
See, no one would have known if you hadn't mentioned it then. So we've been.
Oh, see, no, like my anyone who knows me in real life it always expects some malfunction. It's what we call plot development, Jackson.
Oh, plot development. Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
20,
one. Put that down on the CV. Yeah,
yeah, 2020 for the plot, as we are saying this year.
yeah. I think 2024 the plot. Yeah, I think that's the title of the podcast, really. And I also apologise for anyone listening because a bloody massive double-decker bus just went by the back of where I'm recording. So I do apologise if you listen to a British bus then.
Jackson, how are you today?
Yeah, good man. Good man. I've been teaching all day, so 5 lessons, 12 to 15-year-olds. Anyone who teaches will understand the phrase I'm going to say next. Kids are amazing. As we were just discussing beforehand in the non-recorded recorded section. Um, I am never it never ceases to amaze me how kids have a fantastic propensity to lie, but then when they're getting called out on their lie, double down on that. And I always say to them, I did what you did. I just didn't get caught. So next time, don't get caught. But yeah, it's one of those things.
Jackson, as someone who told his fair share of bent truths in his youth, um, what in and as someone else who did it, what insults you more? The fact that the kids lied to you or lied to you and were bad at it?
It's the fact they're lying to me. Like it's
Oh, okay.
the first lie to me. The first lie is not too bad.
Yeah.
It's when you get caught and you keep going. It's like, no, 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 no. I know. I have evidence. I have emails. Other kids. Stop lying. Just stop wasting my time. Stop wasting my time or I'll waste yours. Like that's the bit for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if any of my students are listening, um, I dislike you all equally, and I will look forward to having a great lesson tomorrow. So yeah,
I dislike you all equally.
they
That
all ask who's their favorite. Who's your favorite, sir? Who's your favorite?
yeah.
Yeah,
Just letting you know, when they get into college, they're still the same. That does not stop.
yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. In my master's I was TAing like juniors and seniors. And so I was like, okay, like this is gonna be like, which is weird because some of them were older than me, but that's beside the point. I would come in and be like, okay, they just want to get this done, like get out of here. Perfect, let's go and do it. And every day, like, because I taught 3 sections, every day, one person in each of them be like, who's the favorite today? Who's the favorite section today? And you know what? Like, and I said, well, no one has given me coffee or told me I'm the light of their life. So right now, no one is my favorite.
If they could bring me coffee, I would admit that they were my favorite. That's,
What happened to like bringing teachers apples?
oh, I'd kill for an apple during a lesson. Absolutely kill for an apple.
A good red delicious apple.
Stop it, Jacob. Stop it.
What?
I haven't eaten dinner yet. Stop it.
Oh, gotcha. It's my bad, my bad, my bad. It's like 5:30 for you, Jackson, right now. 5:38.
Yeah, it's 20 to 6. 26. So I've finished my work day because school here is from about I have to be in work at 8 in the morning. I get to leave to go home at 3:15. But tonight we had CPD sessions, which is being taught how to teach, which is uh yeah, that gap kind of explains that. And then so yeah, I got home about 4:30 this evening. So it's one of those things where teaching is it encompasses all parts of your life. Um, and now actually being able to do something that I really enjoy and talk to other people and come on podcasts, really does make my evening.
as a fellow like podcast host, or do you feel weird being on the other side of the camera or like the microphone? Are you like critiquing how I'm conducting this interview in your head? It's okay if you are.
No, it's bizarre really because I very rarely appear on other podcasts. I think recently I've done this week I've appeared on two. This one, your podcast, and another one. And I think I did one a couple of months last week, and then one before Christmas. And each time I get a little bit more comfortable with it. But you all have different styles, and you're all different podcasts, and you all want to talk about different things. So I always find it being bizarre on the other side of the microphone because I have a very unique style of interviewing,
Mm.
which I know I'd probably find quite difficult as a guest. But when I get to go and be myself and talk about what I do, I absolutely love it. And I always love listening to the questions that you're going to send because when it's history, I'm being sent my questions, I get to prepare a bit more. But when it's something like we're doing, you're unscripted. I was listening to your other podcast the other day where you thought unscripted podcasts are some of the best ones. I absolutely love it because I get to freeball a little bit more without being so restrained to what I've researched that week.
I honestly have mad respect for people like you who like plan and prepare for the podcast. Some days I just hop on the microphone and see what happens. And like, which, sorry to everyone out there thinking that this was a very well planned professional thing. I put semi professional in the title for a reason.
Well,
But
that's the beauty of editing, isn't it? That's the beauty of editing where you get to cut it. Meanwhile, if I don't read the book, I don't look very good.
uh,
So
yeah.
yeah, if I'm like, tell me about Stalin, it's Julius Caesar. Ah,
Ah,
right.
right. I think the worst tumble I ever had, like doing an episode of the show, was I was scheduling like multiple episodes a week. So I like to do multiple episodes in a week. So like the kind of like interviewing mindset's fresh in my head. And then I can
Yeah.
like edit them and then like have them prepared throughout the year, especially with teaching and school and research. It gets to be a lot. So I like to have them like kind of stacked and like schedule release. And this is the one time I ever prepared for an interview. The one time I ever fully prepared, like I'm talking multiple notes, read up on their papers, everything come through. Turns out I had the wrong guest scheduled that day.
Oh.
So I was like, wow, this is so it is for that reason alone. I do not really prepare. I like read up on like a little bit, like I do like a quick Google search, make sure I can pronounce the guest's name and go from there.
Yeah, and I think yeah, sometimes you have a little bit of a moment when you're podcasting. You think, actually, no, this is going to change the way that I do things. I did very much appreciate you messaging me and saying, "How do you pronounce my name?" Because it does make it's one of those things that makes a massive difference when you're hosting and when you're guesting as well, of actually getting your name right, which is a basic, I think. Yes.
It is a basic, and like that was my worst fear ever. It's like I bring someone on the show and I get their name wrong because that just sets like a harsh mood the entire time.
Well, you've set me in a happy mood. I'm
Oh,
free and fluid. Yeah.
thank goodness, thank goodness. All right. Well, Jackson, in light of that kind of more in-depth intro, would you mind just introducing yourself to the audience and giving them a little bit more info about you and your background?
Of course. So I'm a historian and political theorist. I'm also a teacher, hence we had a conversation about teaching. I did my BA in history at the University of Chichester here in England, and I then went off and trained to be a teacher. Went back and did my masters in politics at the University of Birmingham. Being I've always really enjoyed history and politics, and kind of sat in a weird apex between the two. But I have had periods in my life where I've not enjoyed either one of them. Um, Sport for the vast majority of my life has probably been the priority. Playing rugby is probably doing athletics has probably been the priority until I had a lot of injuries. So that was when I kind of readjusted and reevaluated. But as always with a lot of other people, COVID was actually that moment where I took stock and tried to figure out where I wanted to be. So that's where History Jackson came from. and History of Jackson is a history platform where I try and make history with my team, try and make history more accessible and digestible. So taking historians and researchers' research and making it more accessible for everyday people to kind of understand the up-to-date historical research that they might not be able to access, might not have the knowledge base to just immediately go to and learn from if they read the book. But if they listen, they can learn, they can try and build new knowledge pathways and then get into the subject a little bit more. So that's what History of Jackson is. That's how I got to this point. We're 3 years deep now, covering history festivals, working with my best mate. She's joined and helping out this year. Working with a mate from uni as well who's going to help me at festivals. It's yeah, it's probably the most important, one of the most important things in my life, to be honest. I spend probably far too much time thinking about what I'm doing or what I'm going to do next instead of kind of stopping and taking stock of where I am, which is why I love doing these podcasts because I get to kind of go, ah, actually, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm going to like expose myself a little bit because, you know, when do I don't? But I was on like the podcast Twitter, like, doing the engagements, like talking about upcoming episodes, all that. And there was a thread to, like, for podcasters to like plug their account, and I came across yours, and I was like, oh, like this dude is like killing it. Like he's got like this like really is firm established. The logos are on point. Like I checked it, great reviews, like great content. And then I followed, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna see if I can take tips from this guy because he seems to know what he's doing. And like, I'd been like in the podcast world for like maybe 6 months, so the logo was still that horrible black and white, basic logo that I designed on PowerPoint. I was broke. I had an Amazon microphone in a dream, and I like geeked when you followed me back. I was like, oh, so, and now here we
Oh,
are.
no, I appreciate that. It's great when you're in the podcasting community and you get to meet people whose products that you if anyone knows, I talk about History of Jackson as a very business sense because for me it's a business. So I always see the podcast as a product. And when you see other people who've got podcasts and products that you really like and you think they're pretty awesome, like the concept of yours of humanizing academics, which we don't do very well, um, I thought was a fantastic idea. And I always try and humanize myself, but when I'm asking questions, I don't, you don't get a chance to offer a lot of personality up. And when you see people like yourself trying to humanize people, I always think it's awesome. And I always try and support other people, other podcasters, and helping them out if they need help or just, just listening to their podcast and seeing what I can learn from them as well. Because it's as we're in academics, and we all have the kind of same mindset. We all bloody love learning, and we don't really stop. So that's kind of what I like about dipping my toe in that community.
Yeah. Lame. So throughout this interview, Jackson, I'm going to be asking you multiple questions. I'm just preparing you. My audience knows I kind of dip around a little bit. It's all going to come together in some way. This show is the definition of trust the process. So, so like don't look at it too closely. Everything makes sense if you don't look at anything too closely. Is what I say. Um,
Don't, trust the process. Trust the process is one of my favorite sayings. I'm an Arsenal fan, and that's what we got told about Mikel Arteta. So I will trust the process, mate. Don't worry.
okay, perfect, perfect. Kind of like taking it back, like at the beginning, Jackson. What kind of like interested you into like doing more exploration into like and really just studying history and political theory?
Yeah, it was a bit weird, really. Is that I've always loved history, and I still love monarchical history, British monarchical history, and English monarchical history. But I never focused on what everyone else was focusing on, what all the books focused on, because they were all talking about. Yeah, I love war history, military history. It's pretty awesome. Who doesn't? If you're a historian, you haven't held a sword. Like, what are you doing? No, hold a sword. It's awesome. So military history is bloody awesome. But there's a lot of social history going on. Um, what people were wearing, what they were eating, the different personal relationships and what they meant and stuff. And it just turned me off so much. I was so bored of reading social history, having to write social history. But I was always incredibly interested in the political relationships, the use of power within these, and that kind of pushed me out of the medieval period. And I've always loved the medieval period, but it pushed me out of the medieval period into looking at Stalin, Hitler, and Mao, which I'd been interested in. And then when I was doing a paper for a class called Political Ideologies, I came across the concept of totalitarianism. So I wrote a paper on it, and I was just completely hooked. I was like, well, what is totalitarianism? What does it mean? How do different regimes interact with it? And I just kept learning and learning more about totalitarianism to the point where basically everything that I wrote related to it, and everything that I looked at related to it. So I did my history degree, and I finished my history degree and went off teaching. And I just thought, no, I still need, this is still an itch that I need to scratch. So went off and did a master's, and everything I did in my master's politics, because I thought, well, this is more of a political idea, political theory, um, tied towards it as well. So that's kind of, because I sit in that weird space of being a historian, but also being a political theorist, it's kind of led to me being able to marry the two. But if you ask me why people wore stuff in a certain century, or what the architectural style of a certain century is, I don't care. I really don't care. I I am so bored if I've got to sit for a lecture on that, I tell you.
I am not a historian, but like even within like biology, there's like certain fields and like certain like subdisciplinaries where I'm just like, I am so bored. I do not care about this. This is important to somebody, just not me. I don't want to be here. Like not, and that's like not invalidating them by saying that we're not interested in that.
No, 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 I think there's some fantastic research done on it, and I love engaging with it when I can to kind of learn. But like, if I've got to sit there and read so much on it and try and learn it or write something for it, Facebook is infinitely more interesting. And us, like, as a mid 20-year-old person looking on Facebook, it is dead. Like, there is nothing on Facebook anymore, and I'd rather do that sometimes.
Oh, you just need to like get into like, you need to find friends who are from small towns. Like, cause me, I'm from like, point of reference for everybody. I'm from, my hometown is a city of 2,000 people with one stoplight in the whole place. And
Wow,
yeah, I know y'all can't see it, but Jackson's eyebrows was the most intense raise I've
wow, yeah, yeah,
minute. So yeah, so I'm very particular about the word about when people say like, "Oh, this is like a small town kind of vibe," and then I'd be like, "Okay, well, like, where do you guys go for groceries?" Like, well, I either go, and then if you go to and you start with either, pack it
yeah,
up, pack it
yeah.
up,
Like,
you're done, you're done,
I
you're done.
live in a small UK city, and I still think there's five figures people living here. Um, and yeah, we've got several shops, so we're not small by your definition at all.
Yeah, no, I'm very much a size queen when it comes to city and like the terminology. Or like maybe I'm just like a terminology snob. But no, the drama in those towns, crazy. Absolutely crazy. And that's the whole reason why I keep Facebook is like the drama for just for that.
Just the drama. Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Like uh this is like kind of a tangent, but like anyone who's watched the show knows that we love tangents on the show. There was a couple who called themselves a power couple like this whole time, like everything. And I was like, oh, this is like cute, whatever. You're 60. I don't know if I would still be saying power couple after all this time, but like good on you, do whatever you want. And then the wife of said power couple posted that they're getting a divorce and that he asked her for a divorce and she ended the post with the hashtag the power couple has lost its energy.
I feel sick. That's that's disgusting. I'm sorry. That's that's I've physically recoiled at that is something. When I see stuff like that, I'm like, ooh. So
But no, that's the whole reason why I keep Facebook is just like nice little like grounding moment, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, I do know what I mean. It's yeah, I've as you meet people who are on telly and stuff like that, I think it's always important to remember where you're from and who you've grown up around. I I think I would unfriend someone though if they said power couple energy gone. I yeah, you
Like
know what I mean. Like,
no. And like I'm all for like if your significant other and like you all are vibing on that, absolutely do whatever you want. But like,
oh 100%. Yeah, if you're happy, you're happy. Just
yeah. But
don't put it in my face.
don't force that lifestyle on it. No, like because I was briefly dating this guy, and I say very briefly for a reason. And we had met once. Like we had went out once. And he like I don't know if you like know on Facebook when they're like changing the relationship status, like they have and they tag you, you have to confirm it. And I was like, my brother in Christ, we have been on one date. This is not serious. And it was just coffee. Like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like I think coffee's like a good first date, like testing the waters, whatever. But like homie like was ready to go full Facebook status and was like making posts about me and everything. And I'm just like, you are crazy. But I mean, like love bombing works on me because I think that it makes total sense to fall in love with me that quickly.
I mean, I think that's admirable of him to assume that he can do that. But likewise, I think there was several red flags that you probably just walked right through.
Oh yeah, no, dodged a bullet for sure. But yeah, no. So I'm all for that, but like the importance of reading a room is very important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't overestimate how important it is to read a room. And I think the more I do this and do this thing that I'm doing, um, how increasingly obvious it becomes to me for people who can't read a room, uh, and how much that irks me as a person.
Like, do you mean as a person in general or like particularly like a podcast host or
Oh, 100% both. 100% both.
oh snap.
Um, I've played rugby for a long time. Um,
Which shout out to you. I feel like I would break my neck if I did that, but
oh, I am broken. I am a broken physical man. ACL surgery, broken collarbone, stuff like that. Thank God for the NHS. But yeah, just what people think they can say to you when you play a sport like that. Or it's yeah, it's just very weird that people can't read rooms. And then when you're podcasting um and people like when you're like literally in a room with a podcast interviewing someone and people just walk like just like I'm interviewing someone right now. Can you be quiet? Like, you know,
Mhm.
like read the situation.
Yeah. My worst fear is like after all these years of complaining for about people not being able to read a room, I in fact am the person who has never been able to read the room and I've just been oblivious this whole time. It's my worst fear. It is my worst fear and like no one has told me. So I feel like at this point either I know how to read a room or I'm just so far gone that people have just given up.
See, that's either yeah, anxiety or a crippling amount of self-awareness. So there's a thin line there. That's
And I tiptoe
yeah.
with grace. Um, but me aside, they hear enough about me every week. I definitely want to ask more about history and your political theory aspect, and we'll go into that a little bit. But as far as getting certified to become a teacher, was that always the game plan, or did that develop like later while you were at uni?
That developed later. That developed later. If anything, I was actually so resolutely against being a teacher. I didn't. I absolutely did not want to be a teacher. Categorically, you asked me when I was 12, don't want to be a teacher. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, don't want to be a teacher. Um, and then I was doing uni, looking at options afterwards. I knew I wanted to do a master's. I didn't really know where, in what. And teaching was a natural step for me. You know, I'm a sports coach in the holidays. Um, I have coached teams before, and it was a natural step for me to go and be a history teacher. Um, for me, being a teacher is either something you naturally are, you are naturally a teacher, or you are not. And it just so happens that I am naturally a teacher. You know, I'm the eldest of three boys. You know, I have those natural skills. So I just naturally ended up into it. I enjoy some parts and having to fill an insane amount of paperwork in. I do not.
You know, in case you weren't getting enough paperwork with being an academic, the teacher like definitely
Yeah.
comes in and helps with that, you know, because you have such a light load paperwork wise with academia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the paperwork stuff that I've got to do for being a like writing books and writing articles. It's like tick this box, send. Awesome. That was 5 minutes. So yeah.
The amount of like just all the papers having to read and books to read and just kind of like theses to read as a historian major and like an historian political theorist and then come in and do all the teaching paperwork that my hand hurts out of sympathy.
Yeah, I think I've got it down to a fine craft now. Um, I can read a book in a week, which I've worked pretty hard to do, but it's the writing the questions. It's like making sure that everything is on fine fighting. If I'm not on fighting form, which I have to try and maintain most of the time, things slip. And then with the teaching, it's kind of it is just grit your teeth and bear it sometimes because you have to do it. If you don't turn up, someone else is teaching your class, and whatever you've got planned is kind of messed up a little bit. So yeah, I kind of take that approach. If I don't do it, who else is going to? So it's a little bit tough, but you have to I make sure I have strategies in place so that I'm not burning out consistently. Otherwise, I would just be a burnt out mess most of the time.
And that's so important, which I really feel like within academia and academics and teachers as well, like as a like that whole sphere, we don't talk about the importance of balance to avoiding burnout.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of saying it. Balance to avoid burnout because they are such all-encompassing jobs. You know,
Mhm.
being a teacher is not something where you can just turn up at 8 and leave at 3. Like you worry about, like I even call them my kids. You worry about your kids. 10 o'clock at night, you know that there's issues, you worry about them. And then with academia and research, you're consistently thinking about your topic. So I'm thinking about these kids and going, will they be all right tomorrow? I hope they're in a better mood tomorrow. But then I'm consistently thinking about Stalin on the other side of my head. So it's a very weird mix because you can't have work-life balance when they are just so all-encompassing. I find that anyway. The balance for burnout, I find, as you said, I think that's a wonderful phrase because it's making sure that you're mentally fit enough to fight, mentally well enough to kind of be a bit bouncy and be a little bit joyous, and having those mechanisms to kind of manage it and make sure you're all right.
Mhm. Yeah. I you gotta find the diamond in the rough of this life and to have like that balance to avoid burnout. And that's part of the why like I'm so unhinged because like I was like I can either handle half of this hinged or I can handle all of this and just say some like out of pocket stuff sometimes. When I say out of pocket, I'm just meaning like just absolutely silly, ridiculous thing. Like never harmful or anything like that. Like, oh my gosh, my friend Serena, shout out to Serena. She doesn't watch this show, but on the off chance she does. Um, I we had went to go get a coffee the other day, and I bought her coffee because we just like weren't waiting. She's like, "Ah, thank you," and then she did like this prayer motion. I was like, and she's not religious, so I was like, "Is this a new development or like what's going on?" And she tells me, "It's like, no, I'm thanking God for you for doing that for me." I was like, "Oh, I wish more people would thank God for me." And it's just like that kind of like that like goofy little thing, just like to let off like some steam throughout the day.
Yeah, I think yeah, like you know, you have your own little strategies, and I'm like that with my mates because I can't say that between the hours of 8 and 3. I can't be so incredibly out of pocket as I like to be with my mates. With a bunch of 12 to 14, 12 to 15 year olds because I need to be a role model on how you interact with other people, which is sometimes frustrating. But you know, in terms of I drink copious amounts of coffee and have a crippling caffeine addiction because that's what. Oh no, sorry. I listened to James Hoffman. Is it James? Yeah, James Hoffman on the Diary of a CEO podcast. It's not called a caffeine addiction anymore. It's a dependency. So I have a crippling caffeine dependency.
Oh, that
So
sounds
I
worse.
have.
That sounds so much worse.
See, I thought it was better. So now you just rained on my parade, Jake. Thank you.
It must be the difference between across the pond. That's where the cultural
Yeah.
difference.
So yeah, crippling caffeine addiction, but dependency, and a lot of sport because I think that's been my lifelong way of dealing with everything. It's just going off and doing sport. So going to the gym every evening. I played rugby for the first time in 6 months on Saturday, so that was another way of dealing with it because you can't hit a child. But what you can do is you can hit a grown man on a Saturday. So that's a very nice way of getting frustration out and throwing around heavy weights. That's love that.
No, hit it. You heard it here first, folks. Jackson said hitting children out, throwing heavy weights around, and hitting grown men is in. I'm kidding. Don't actually hit people. Don't actually, but like
Mine is within a legally sanctified,
legally saying.
legally sanctioned pitch. Um, but the only problem is comes when they're much much bigger than you. That hurts. So yeah.
This is gonna sound really weird, but like, how tall are you? Because like in your videos, you seem like a very tall person.
Yeah, so I'm 6'2". I'm
Oh,
6'2".
yeah.
So yeah, quite tall in comparison. I'm quite a big bloke. So yeah, that's something that has has worked in my favor quite a bit.
Yeah. So do you like ever like roll up on the rugby field, and be like, all right, let's go. Like kind of
Genuinely, I'm nowhere near the biggest on the pitch.
really?
Yeah. I'm often middle sized on a pitch. Sometimes on the larger side of that, but I've never ever been the biggest player up a pitch at all. There's people who are 6'8", 7 foot, 100 and I've played against people who are 140, 150 kilos easy. I cannot do the conversion in my head to pounds and whatever it is. But
I know it's a lot. I know it's up there. I know it's up there. So like,
I know 225 is 100 kilos. So I am playing against people who are 300 pounds. Easy. Easy.
yeah, I'm doing the calculator so like we can let the audience know. Yeah. 150 kilos to pounds is 330 pounds.
Yeah. I'm regularly playing. I've regularly played against people like that. So Matt Remp, I'm a big fan of American sports as well. So Matt Remp, the guy in the New York Rangers who's been fighting everyone for his first debut week in the NHL, that man, 6'8", 110 kilos, whatever he is, that is that he would be a big, in terms of height, he'd be a big player on a pitch. In terms of weight, he would be on the lighter side of heavy in rugby. So yeah,
That has me terrified because
we ain't got pads.
what?
So that's
You ain't what?
no pads.
Notepad.
notepads.
So you're just, oh, no wonder you're a broken man. Jesus Christ. Like,
So yeah, that's a very, very good way to get frustration out. Yeah.
yeah, I, wow, that's very impressive. My 5'10" self could never. Wow.
Oh, I know people who are I know people who have played. I've played against someone who's 5 foot, and he's a fantastically talented and gritty player. I actually hated playing against him because he is so bloody aggressive with everything. So yeah, it's a game for all shapes and sizes, but it's a fantastic way to let out frustrations with my academic work, my research, and my teaching as well.
Nice.
Also makes me more normal. Um, because if I was just thinking and reading about Stalin all day, I think I'd be pretty morbid, to be honest. So
Yeah. Yeah, nothing brings you out of the depression than running over into a fully grown man.
yeah, yeah, can't beat it.
Jumping back into the kind of academic trajectory after, and sorry, I might need a refresher on the timeline, but after you got certified to be a teacher in the UK, then we pursued the master's degree, correct? In political theory?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I just want to make sure. So prior up to that, did you always know that you wanted to go to graduate school, or did that like becoming a teacher come later?
Um, it came during my undergrad, so I literally went undergrad teaching, masters. Did it back to back, back to back to back. Actually, I actually wanted to go into to tech sales when I was doing my degree. I
Really?
wanted to go and do like IBM, that kind of stuff, Oracle, Suncor. That I wanted to go into that kind of world because I like technology as well. I also wanted to be a professional player, but because of injuries, I never got an opportunity to do so.
Mhm.
Um, so that's what I wanted to do. But when I got interested in my subject and wanted to scratch that itch and keep scratching that itch, that's where that's where the grad school ideas came from. I thought, you know what, I like doing this. I'm good at this, and I want to do this for the rest of my life. So why should I not pursue it? And owing to the sports side of me, there is there's a desire to win and achieve what I set myself out to do. So when I set myself on that path, there was a stubbornness of saying I'm going to do this by hook or by crook. So I went, I didn't quite enjoy my training year because your training year is incredibly tough as a early career teacher. There was a couple of times when I wanted to give up, but I went off and did it. I finished it and then went off to the masters, and now I'm looking at PhD programs here in the UK. But then also within that, the opportunities to publish in history for magazines. So I've published in All About History magazine, History of War magazine, several other magazines, getting the book contract with Pen and Sword. They were just they're ways of me being able to express my love for my subject, but also to 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 try and achieve that goal that I have for my career and my life. Because if I don't do it, I personally will regret it and feel a great amount of disappointment in myself.
Mhm. Yeah, and we've said it before, but your CV must be like 10 pages long with all that you've done. And I mean, so just for everyone keeping up at home, uh yeah, Jackson is a teacher, has a bachelor's, has a master's, has History with Jackson, a great history platform. I highly recommend for anyone who's interested in history, check it out. It's amazing. And I'm not even a real like I'm not even really into history. So like if I'm endorsing something with history, that's saying a lot. And then on top of that, running all the social media for History with Jackson, which that's a whole nother thing. And like we're going to talk about that later. And then
Oh,
also
yeah.
having a book contraction and like being an author of actual history books.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
do you
when you put it like that. Yeah.
when do you sleep? I'm being so real.
So it's probably easier for me to go through my day actually. So on a typical day when I'm teaching, it's up at 6, in at work for 8, out of work at 3:30, back home, history of Jackson work. So I do history of Jackson work from about 4 o'clock. Go to the gym at 8. Um, Usually a scoop or two of pre-workout because that's more caffeine. And I'm already shattered at that point. Typically go to sleep about half 11, 12 o'clock most nights. Um, Fat lying on a weekend though, just to catch up on that sleep debt. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, when you say it like that, when you're doing it, you don't think it's that much. But when you say it like that, you're like, oh, when do I have the chance to do X, Y, and Z?
Like I like the stuff that I'm just doing right now. I'm tired, and I can imagine like having that workload that you're doing.
Oh, I am perpetually shattered. I am perpetually shattered. But
That might be the
it's
title of this episode. I'm perpetually shattered.
yeah, but it's but you, like I said earlier, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And I want to win. So I'm competing against myself, like I'm
Yeah.
competing myself. But yeah,
Oh yeah, no. People don't I don't think people clock this about me, but I'm a very competitive person,
I think most academics are. I think
which
it's latent in most of us. But yeah,
like I mean, I grew up playing sports as well. So like I'm very competitive by nature. I always have been. Like and not necessarily like in the best way, like in my youth, but like I'm still very competitive to this day. So if I get like because right now an assignment and like grades aren't important, but like that like to me that's just talking to a brick wall. Uh I if I get a 10 on something and then I get a 9 the next week on like an assignment, even if I got the highest in the class, I'm pissed.
yeah.
I'm so I'm so it's so weird. I do not expect this out of anyone else. I expect this like all out of me. Like I cannot make a mistake. And even in this podcast, if I miss like an edit or something and I have to go back and do it a second time, I'm upset. I'm like so angry. It's so
I
weird.
think I, th- I think that's a wider problem with academics. Actually, is that we are so driven to achieve a certain, and I think that's something that I'm trying to sort of myself. We're so driven to achieve a certain result, a certain kind of style, certain level of work that when we don't meet our expectations, we're pissed at ourselves. Um, and I think that's what I'm trying to do more, take stock and actually enjoy what I'm doing because when you're so result driven and driven to do something, you don't often appreciate the journey and you don't often get the chance to be very pleased and proud of what you've done. I think that's, I think that, yeah, that's something I'm trying to work on a little bit at the moment as an academic because, yeah, I think it's a wider problem within academia. I mean, if I lose a game rugby, so if I'd play on a Sunday when I was younger, my Monday and Tuesday I'd be awful. My little brother's worse than me in that regard as well, and he's not an academic, but it's just trying to sort. I think it's trying to recognise a wider problem, as you mentioned there, wider problem in academia, and trying to set a better example for the next generation. Even though we are technically the next generation, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but I don't count. I forget that this is gonna sound so dumb, and but I don't know how else to word it. I forget that I'm just getting started in my career as an academic.
Yeah, yeah. I think because we're so, I think it's probably more so for us because we're surrounded by people who are younger than us. We don't quite realize where we are in our step. But actually, when you look ahead and you look at the people whose work you admire, you're like, oh, like they've been in the game for 40 years. Like I've been doing it for 2. Like that's nothing to them. Although here's a gripe I have, all right. When I tell the kids that I was born in the 90s, they think I'm so old. And that's just not on.
Oh, I was walking in the hallway and I literally felt like I crushed that discussion as a TA in the class. Like I felt like I did such a good job. I connected with the students who were laughing, they were getting the material. I was like, all right, this looks like a pretty good group. Like we were rocking it. Then I overheard one of them say, "Yeah, my TA is so old. He was born in the 1900s."
Wow. Wow. Not wrong. We were born in the 1900s, but wow.
I mean, you don't gotta say it like that. Like,
No, no, you don't. No, no. They forget that we can hear as well, which is pretty rough for us sometimes.
yeah. And I was like, I'm 24. Like at the time this was said, I was 23. And so like,
Brutal.
oh my gosh, like so humbling. I genuinely was just like, this is where we're at. This is where we are at. And I go back to like my PhD cohort, and I'm the youngest in that cohort. So I'm just like, oh, I'm so young and youthful. Then I go teach, and I feel like the crypt keeper.
Yeah, nope. Nope. I'm gonna check out that conversation. That's
I'm gonna check out that conversation. Do your students like make jokes about you being old or like not really? Like old to
they
them?
they
Like,
think I'm in my 30s. I'm so offended that they think I'm on. I mean, I have a beard. I'm a big person. I can understand. I've got a deep voice. I've got a bit of a presence in the front of the classroom. I can understand how they make the assumption that I'm in my 30s. But 37, you tell me I'm 37,
they thought
you
you
could
were
get out of my classroom. I don't.
they thought you were 37.
37,
You do not
37.
you do not look
Nope.
37 at all.
I was mortified. I was so offended, and it was a genuine question as well. And I hadn't even broached the topic of age. It was just a straight random answer. But other ways, I make sure I stay on TikTok so I know what these kids are on about. That made me sound old in itself. But when they say the slang, when they say slang, I know damn well what they mean, and they're like, "Oh no, 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 sir, it's not about that." I think you find I'm only 8 years older than you. I know damn well what that means.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I live on TikTok like regularly. I have my personal account, then I have the podcast account. And some of these, I think my students, because I'm in a position of power over them, they think that that's all I do.
Oh,
And
yeah,
one of them, it wasn't this semester, but it was like another semester, looked at me and like I had just gotten like a new pair of pants and I was like worried because I don't usually like clothes. And he goes, he says, "Giat." And
yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh, I can never wear these
yeah.
pants. I can never wear these pants again in a professional setting. I mean, like, I know that's why I got them, but for you to verbalize that,
I've had that before, and you're like, "That's inappropriate," and they're like, "Oh no, sir, it means this." No, I know what it means. That's inappropriate.
that's very inappropriate.
You're 13, and I'm 25.
No,
Go.
go away. No, it ruined the whole day because I had to teach that. I had to teach back-to-back labs from like 9 until 2. And so I was just in a sour mood all day because I was like, I was really like these, and now I feel disgusting. And it's nothing I did wrong, but then I don't know. I'm also the eldest sibling, so I feel like anytime anything goes wrong, it's my fault.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a difficult thing having to like when kids say something inappropriate, and you're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be saying that."
Yeah.
But also, like they say stuff, and they're like, I genuinely don't know where you got that from at all. Like I've not heard anyone say that since I was your age, and we were on the tail end of that.
Yeah.
Like I've had a kid before say to me, "Oh, Bovril's bussing," and I'm like, "Why are you drinking Bovril? You're 12." Like
Wait, what's Bovril?
Bovril was like this like gravy kind of thing. I can't have a hand for it, but it's like you can like put boiling water on it, and you can drink it, and like he was just saying like Bovril's busting to his best mate. I'm like, what? Like typically it's an older person's thing because it's not something that I've seen. Like it's not something that younger people typically have. And I was like, what? Like, how have you mixed these two worlds together? That you're drinking Bovril, but you're saying it's busting. Like, I'm so confused.
The children are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Children are
You
amazing.
got it.
Children are amazing and make so many choices.
Yep. So many wise decisions. Yeah.
Coming back to it, and you mentioned it a little bit, but can you mind going a little bit more in depth into how History with Jackson just came to be?
Yeah. So I I've always talked about history, especially in my house. My family are sick to death of me talking about it, to be honest. And then one Christmas, my mum and dad bought me a camera, and they just said, go and do it. Like you've got no excuse now, go and do it. So I filmed the first video in my bedroom on New Year's Day of 2021. 2021? Yeah, 20, it must have been 2021. New Year's Day of 2021. Um, and from there, it was just like learning history with me. Like, that's History of Jackson. And I would do video essays and stuff on camera and talk about various different bits of history. And then I did a few podcast appearances on other people's podcasts. Um, I was like regular guests on a couple of podcasts. And then I thought, oh, this podcasting game is actually more fun than filming videos. So I started podcasting and started interviewing lecturers and stuff about their papers. And then I got sent a book by Medina Publishing. Um, from there, it just developed into doing monthly podcasts and then became weekly podcasts. And it's kind of, but then it turned away from being learning history with me to learning history with me, where like I'm learning the history at the same time as you. Yeah, I might have read the book and prepared the questions, but I'm still learning at the same time with you. And then, opening the website up to open up for blog submissions as well. You can't, way I saw it is you can't be the home of accessible and digestible history and try and give historians a platform when you're only interviewing one person a week. There's other ways of making history more accessible and digestible, and there's other ways of giving historians a platform and using what I have to help other people. When I came into this game, there was very few people offering other people a platform. There were very few people helping and guiding people through. And now that I'm not established, like I've still only got 3,000 followers on Instagram, 4,000 on TikTok, but you know, thousands of people listen to the podcast, and it's a way to expose people's work and help people develop. When I didn't have that opportunity, there wasn't those routes for me, and yeah, I think it's one of my favorite things of doing actually is seeing what other people are getting up to and trying to help them out. My best mate Abby, who you guys might have seen in Catherine of Aragon stuff that I was doing for Peterborough Cathedral. Abby is like one of my oldest mates. I've known her for nearly 20 years. I had competitions of her trying to name as many monarchs on the playground as we possibly could. And she was one person who I kind of helped out. It's like she's a fantastically talented historian, and she writes on the blog now. She has a book contract simply because I was like, well, you're good at writing this. You should sign that contract. They've offered you a contract, sign it. And it's great seeing. Not only is it great seeing people that you know and you care about like being helped and getting these opportunities, but it's also fantastic to see and try and help young people who are younger than me try and get into the same field and try and learn and grow and flourish, which I absolutely love. Because I didn't have those opportunities.
I think that is like one of the coolest things ever. I didn't have like an academic like background family by any means. So a lot of like how this world works and like how you have to like navigate that, how you get started really was just like trial and error, like figuring out by the seat of my pants. And I think that the way that you are doing this to not only make history and history education accessible to everybody, which is amazing. And I love the way that you do it. But also kind of like bringing people up the ladder with you. Whereas like I feel like a lot of academics, like no tea, no shade to anybody, but will a lot of academics will quickly pull that ladder up with them as soon as they're done. And I just think the way that you, while you're growing as well and learning, helping others learn, that's just fantastic. So like I just want to give you like my praise
Oh
for
no,
that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. No, it's like I don't come from an academic family as well. Like I had to, yeah, my parents helped me phrase emails and helped me phrase difficult messages, but they don't understand the academic world. And I've had to learn how to communicate in this world very much on my own. And, if I can help someone navigate it a little bit better and not piss people off, fantastic. Like I've done my job. But what I also say to some of my friends who help me out is like, if I make it, I'm not making it on my own. Like you're coming with me because it can be an incredibly lonely world, but also, yeah, I want to win. I want to win, but also, what's the point of doing it for yourself?
Mhm.
Like, what's the point of being at the top if you're on your own? Because there's no one to enjoy it with. There's no one to bring along for the journey, which is the most fun part. If I was going to history festivals on my own, who the hell am I going to talk to? Like there's other historians there, but you know, they're there for 2 hours, they do their talk, and sometimes they have to go home, or they're there for the day, but sometimes they have to go home. If I've got a team with me who I can help expose to this world, help them with their career, but also do what I need to do with people I enjoy spending time with, it's more fun for me. And that's like that's the first conversation that I have with anyone if they want to work with me in a closer way is, what do you want to get out of this? Where do you want to go? How can I facilitate that? And once I've had that conversation, it's like, cool. If you don't want to do social media, don't do social media. If you just want to write articles, just write articles. Like I'd rather you be happy and get something out of this than, it's not a one-way relationship.
That's such a good way to look at it. And your kind of like mentorship style is like what I would go about. I wish more people had that with the mindset of like, how can you help me and how can I help you get what you want out of this? Like that is just, I wish more people were like that, Jackson. I wish more people were.
Unfortunately, I've worked in places where you don't get that.
Same.
And yeah, I've just developed it from what I've had from certain mentors and what I've not had going into different organizations.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes like playing sport when you're left on your own, you don't get those skills. You don't get to develop them. But when you have an older member of a team who kind of takes you under your wing, it helps so much more. And it's basically a lot of it comes from my sporting background of what I like from a mentor and what I haven't had from mentors. So yeah, there's no point doing it on your own.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give you kudos for that because I think that's awesome.
No, I appreciate and as you can probably tell, um, I get a little bit uncomfortable when people tell me well done for that because it's just the way that I believe it should be done. I don't believe that you should be praised for doing something how it should be done. So no, I appreciate that. It's just one of those things I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. But it's nice and I do appreciate it.
No problem. I totally get it. And I get the sentiment. Unfortunately, like, while I do think that you're doing a great thing, I feel like it is important to praise that because what you're doing, unfortunately, from my viewpoint in academia, is a rarity instead of like the normal practice. And I just hopefully one day it becomes standard practice, but until we get there, I want to positively reinforce that to the day I die. So I apologize if that makes you
No, no,
uncomfortable.
no, 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 no. It's just one of those things that it
Yeah.
is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. I say that like every day.
It's a good
And
way though.
true. And this is kind of like a niche topic within running history with Jackson, but as like a fellow uh podcaster who simultaneously has to be the talent, the events manager, the editor, and the business relations and the social media specialist. I don't think people understand how hard it is to build like a following or your audience who would appreciate what you're doing and kind of keeping that social media engaged. Like, do you find it difficult to like keep that social media going?
Yes, yes, I do. Um, you've just reminded me I'm not posted this evening. Bollocks. I'll do it afterwards. Um, yeah, so I used to just post clips, and I'm not taking credit for this, to be honest. I used to post clips of podcasts and thought that was enough. And then I went to Catherine of Aragon Festival, and I brought Abby with me. Abby came with me, and Abby said, my mum had been going on for a while, and my mum kept talking to me about it, so I was stubborn and I didn't do it. And then Abby gave me no choice.
Mhm.
Abby is oldest friend, 20 years knowing her. There are ways that she will say something where I'm like, oh, I have no choice in doing that. And she just picked the camera up and she went, right, what you just told me, do to camera. And I was like, what? And she was like, what you just told me, do it to camera. I was like, ah, great. And I started doing the presenting videos and I started um, talking about different parts of things that I learned. And I think that's done more for my engagement and my growth and um, consistency of engagement more than anything else. Because it's a gateway into history of Jackson. It's a gateway into history, um, but also it builds trust. If you can trust me and what I tell you and what you learn from me, then you're going to trust me talking to these historians. Because if you don't trust your interviewer, you don't trust what they're going to talk about and the questions they're going to ask. So I cannot take credit for the social media strategy, even though I execute it now. Um, as you can clearly tell, rather poorly because I've forgotten. But it's I execute it, but it's not something I can take credit for because Abby is an immensely talented person at doing social media. She just hates social media. And I will be sending her this episode so that she can hear me give her praise, but then say that she hates it. So that's why.
You know, that's like the real friends. Like you will fully gas them up, but also like humble them like a little bit every now and then.
Yeah, yeah. It's a two-way street as well. Like she gives far more than she gets actually, in terms of that. Um, but that's the other thing as well. It's all about trust. I can trust her to tell me what to do and know it's going to be all right. Um, and she's coming with me to these festivals later this year to do the same thing because I trust her, and quite clearly it worked all right. So
Yeah. Good job. Good job, Abby. Way to kill it.
yeah,
Way to do fantastic. I haven't met you, but good job, girl. We're kind of wrapping up, but there's like just a few more questions that I want to ask you, Jackson, that
yeah,
I
of
think we're all
course.
interested in. Do you ever like we've kind of briefly talked on it, but I want to go like a little bit more in depth. Like with all that you have going on, you said you're looking into PhD programs. What, just because I'm very nosy, and
Yeah, that's fine.
uh, if anyone's known me, like this is like very restrained for me for like the nosiness that I am. But what's your plans like for that once you have it? Are you thinking about expanding like more into like not more, but like just to get more experience like researching is like you obviously like have it as a teacher. Have you ever thought about like a professor or like where you're going? I know it's a lot. All
That's no, no, that's exactly where I want to go.
oh,
That's exactly where I want to be.
see people, this is
Um,
why I'm nosy. We get to the point.
yeah, that's exactly what I want to be. It's exactly where I want to go, and I want to be the expert in my field. I want to be, you know, the person in my field. I know that's very difficult within a field, especially in a very established field, but a very niche field. And but if it's part of that competitive thing of driving, and I always want to be knowing the most, being the best, and right and doing the best that I can, and that's where I see it going. If when I'm teaching, I want to be the best teacher. When I'm in the gym, I want to be the best in the gym. When I'm playing sports, I want to be the best. When I'm podcasting, I want to be the best. And that kind of builds into that need. Um, and trying to reach that is what I'm trying to do. Professor um, is the ultimate aim, and being happy as well. I don't think I've mentioned that this, but that's probably my central aim as well. Is I want to do that because it makes me happy. I love researching, writing, and talking to people. Why the hell wouldn't I want it as a job? Like I am so immensely happy when I do History of Jackson. I get sent books. I get to read books as a job. I don't make too much money off. I don't make any money off it, to be quite honest. But I get to read books as a job. How fucking cool is that? Like, and like I get to write. People pay me to write. How awesome is that? Like, I'm literally living the dream that I had when I was 5. Like, it's awesome. Like that's just what I want to do with my life. And if I can do that with my life, yeah, awesome. I'll take it. Like, thank you.
I love that so much. Like that's just so I think that's how you know like you're doing exactly what you need to do. And I feel like a lot of times like and I'm sure you get asked this quite a bit, but people ask me like why do I do this? It's like because I like it. And like I love doing it. Like I love like hearing about like people's research and like this show. I love connecting with people giving their stories, especially as someone who didn't grow up in this field. I feel like it was very esoteric in a way. And now, I mean, like, I get to invite people who I have looked up to for months, years, and like we just talk about real stories. And then after I get off this, I go and do research in a lab where I'm studying evolution and speciation, which I've wanted to since I was 17. Like this is cool. Like this is cool to me. Like I'm having a great
Yeah.
time. Granted, it makes me want to pull my hair out, and it's the reason why I'm losing my hair at 24. However,
But you
it
wouldn't have it any other way. Like you genuinely would not have it. I have no more room for books. Am I still having publishers send me books? God damn right I am. Because I love it. And I don't care what anyone else has got to say about it. Now, I remember sitting in a seminar and our professor, he said to me, oh, he said to the seminar as a question, why do we research? Most people came up with questions to improve this and do that and learn about this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, because we enjoy it. Like, why has no one said that? Like, that's the root of why we're here, isn't it? Because we enjoy it. And he was like, oh, I was looking for more. Like, when I was like, well, what's wrong with saying we research because we enjoy it? Like, I do it because I enjoy it.
I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing this because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It almost seems as like, and this is part of the reason like why I started my show is it feels like academia thrives on taking the humanity out of academia. And to me, I mean, like obviously, like you should want to like research like I'll expand this, like clarify this, or like so we know about this. But I'm of that unpopular opinion. If you like what you're doing, the work that you're doing is going to be better because you're emotionally invested in it and you're going to try your best to like put the best foot forward, which I know is a hot take. So like,
I am 100% on board with that. Like the worst piece of writing I've ever written, it was shocking. Like it was bad.
mhm,
It was about environmental history. I didn't care.
mhm.
And it came right across my writing. And the number one feedback was, you could have been more interested. I wasn't. I could not feign interest anymore, which is why everything that I've done well and I enjoyed has always had the best marks because I enjoy it. That's why I do it.
Oh,
So yeah, I totally agree with that point of trying to humanize academia, which is why I really enjoy your podcast.
oh, thank you so much. We are a very, very small podcast with I only have like 100 followers on TikTok and 200 on Instagram, but we're only a year in, so like, hopefully she gets her act together. But I say this as if that's not 100% my fault. Um, but doing our best, doing our best. Jackson, I only have one more question for you.
Okay.
So, as someone who's just so successful, like really, like in my eyes, like doing everything fantastic at such a young age. Is there any piece of advice you'd go back and tell like your younger self that you know now that you maybe hadn't thought about or really hadn't considered like at a younger point in your career?
Younger point in my career or a younger person? Because I think the advice would be slightly different depending on who I'm talking to.
Whichever way.
So
Whichever.
I'll tell you what, I'll do both.
Do
I'll
both.
spoil you. For me, under Jesus, keep a hat on when you got hat hair. That's one. Um, one of them for prior to History of Jackson, I think I'd tell myself just do it. I send that Shia LaBeouf me. Um, but I think it's a big thing of everything I do at History of Jackson. Just do it. Like sod it. Just do it. Like if you don't ask, you don't get. It's completely the other side of worst they can say is no. Actually, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you live your whole life with the worst they can ever say is no, you're never going to ask anything, you're never going to do anything, you're never going to get anything. If you ask, you might get a yes, and you never know. So having that more positive mindset, not that I had a negative mindset, but just doing it and just asking would be something that I'd tell my younger self. And when I started History of Jackson, that's what my mum said. When I was like, oh, I don't know if I should go and do this, mum was like, well, don't ask, don't get. And that's literally the mantra of History of Jackson: don't ask, don't get. Um, Something I tell younger History of Jackson is enjoy it and don't get so bogged down in the statistics and the specifics. Like you do history because you love it, and you talk to people because you love talking to people. When you make friends with, I'm fantastic friends with some of my guests who keep coming on. Um, and when I was bogged down with statistics, I was looking at my statistics like 6 times a day. I don't look at them that much nowadays. Only when I'm uploading an episode or something, because if I get bogged down on it, I'll be like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? Like, I know it's an incredibly niche field, and the way that I do something, do it is quite niche. But also we're independent. I don't spend any money on it. Like the growth I've made is the growth I've made. No money spent. And it's incredibly difficult for independent podcasts to compete
Hmm.
with big bucks media organizations who would put a celebrity on the podcast and go bang, chart topper. Um, and that's fine. Like just don't get down statistics and be confident in what you do. No, I'm confident in the fact I do have a little bit of an ego. Always had one. Um, and I'm very confident in the fact that I'm a bloody good interviewer. I'm a bloody good presenter, and I back myself on that. I genuinely feel that you know I can go toe to toe with most other presenters because I'm confident in my product and I'm confident in myself, the talent as a product. So when I get bogged down in statistics, I'm not so confident in myself. But when I don't, I'm so much better.
Hmm. Yeah. I think just selfishly, I think I needed to hear that a little bit. 'Cause, I mean, I don't know if I qualify as a young podcast if I'm a year old or not. I'm gonna say I am for the sake of this, but like kind of like what you said, like independent podcasting is so difficult, like to
Yes.
like compete with views wise. So like the few kind of like acknowledgements I have, I love that so much. But then like immediately I go immediately and be like, oh, like our downloads like are not doing great this week. Like we only had like X and last week we had Y. And yeah, I think I need
we
to like,
we can't all be Joe Rogan, you know.
I
So
I mean it's like that man sneezes into the microphone and he's already got like 30,000 listeners.
like we can't compete with Joe Rogan. We
No.
can't get Kanye on our podcast. Not that I would, but you can't do that.
I
So
would, yeah, I wouldn't either, but like the views, crazy.
So just be confident in yourself and confident in your product, and then the rest comes.
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
That is another side question that I have. As a historian, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? As a male
Mm,
in history, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
hardly ever. Hardly ever. I'm not an ancient historian, but if you ask me how many times I think about Stalin in a day, it is a worrying amount. So
Yeah, because I'm sure you may have seen this on TikTok, but a thing was that men think about the Roman Empire regularly. And I gotta tell you, outside of history class, I've never thought about the Roman Empire.
yeah, I don't think about it that often, to be fair. Like I only think about it when I do a podcast on it.
Yeah.
But medi medieval warfare, Wars of the Roses, and Stalin, worrying amount, to be quite honest with you. My sticky tagged Mein Kampf is an issue, even though it's for research. It being sticky tabbed and highlighted is an issue for some people. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what I think about.
Yeah. So you heard it here first, everybody. Not only does not every man think about the Roman Empire, not even every historian thinks about the Roman Empire. So think about that. But I will have to say though, the trend of this is my Roman Empire is like my favorite thing. Like that's
It's
like
a good trend.
it's my no, it's my hyperfixation. I have a new that's my Roman Empire every day. Like it's a
And
lot.
actually, I'm bloody grateful for that trend because everything that I did on the Romans, the views increased exponentially. So
Ah,
I loved it.
yeah, you were like, thanks for the engagement.
Yeah,
Thanks for the PR. You just gotta manufacture more trends about what episode's coming out that week.
exactly. Exactly.
Easy work. Light work, obviously. Well, Jackson, before we sign off, is there anything else that you would like to discuss with our audience today, or like a final message to leave them?
Yeah, I think, for everyone in academia, and everyone who's academic hopeful listening to this podcast, um, yeah, just take stock. Just take stock and enjoy where you are. You've put a lot of bloody work into getting to where you are. Um, and this is very hypocritical from me, but just enjoy where you are, and take stock of what you've done because we don't stop enough and go, yeah, well done me. So I think that's something I'd say to everyone.
Nice. Well, Jackson, thank you for that, and thank you for coming on to the show with us today. I had a blast and just cannot thank you enough for your time.
No, no worries at all. Thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed coming on, so thank you.
Thank you. And as always, I am your host, Jacob Watts, and always remember, someone's got to be the villain. It might as well be you. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye.